Gratitud trainay nay. Ray, 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 ray. Gratitud trainay nay. Ray, 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 ray.
Now, here's a little story I got to tell.
We're back. And it's good to be back, as always. Welcome to the Unique Human Experience. This is Giants Amongst Us, where we share in that unique human experience. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever it is you call home and at whatever time you happen to be listening to this episode. I hope you guys are doing well. If this is your first time tuning in, kick your feet up, please do stay a while and know that what you will be hearing are stories, real stories from real people just like yourself. These stories, they come from a lot of different places. They come from hurt, they come from pain, they come from past trauma, child abuse, addictions. But these stories, they also show transformation. They show a rebirth and new beginnings. They show changes in attitude and behaviors and lifestyles, and they're examples to anybody right now listening who thinks there is no more hope. They just don't know what to do and they don't even want to do anymore. Listen to these stories and be reminded that your life is worth it, that your life has meaning, and things can in fact get better. Know that. And today, Allan joins us, and he's got a story to tell. For Allan, growing up, it didn't exactly look like that old TV show Leave It to Beaver. Both of his parents were alcoholics. He said his mother, when he was a child, she was in and out of mental institutions. She had her own psychological issues, and something that really, really damaged him and knocked him flat was when his brother was killed in a farming accident. Allan was only going into the first grade when this happened. And he said after that, it was as if he checked out. He remembers going into the first grade and then coming out in the fourth. It wasn't only until later on he learned about the Dissociative Disorder. And with the loss of his brother and the alcoholism in his household, it wasn't that long before Allan started to develop his own habits and took to the booze. All this happening to Allan early on in his life, but that was just the beginning of his story. Because Allan, he's going to take us on a journey. He's going to share with us his quest and his reasons for wanting to explore the human condition. And one of the main ingredients that helped him along the way was a plant known as Ayahuasca. Now, there might be some people listening who, like myself, had a few questions about it, unsure about it. There's a lot of stigma behind the plant, but in some parts of the world, it's something that is often used, and Allan's going to talk about its effectiveness with helping with addiction, with recovery, with people who have medical conditions, and a lot of the long-term benefits that have been studied, researched, and documented with people who have undergone these type of ceremonies. So I'd like to invite everybody to listen to this conversation with an open mind. And if this is something that you're interested in, you can do your own diligent research. The information is out there. Don't just think after watching one documentary or listening to one interview, you know it all and come to a conclusion. So ladies and gentlemen, let's just get right into it. Without further ado, this is Allan and his story. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. This is Giants Amongst Us, a place where we share in the unique human experience. And I'm excited and pleased to have another guest and another sit down. I'd like to welcome Allan to the show. Allan, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you have things going on over there. You're a busy man. You're doing a good work. And so thank you for taking time out of your day to spend and share a little bit of story. Appreciate it. How's it going?
Good. And happy to be here, Richard. It's one of my favorite topics. So, I'm glad you're doing the show and happy to be here. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can tell. And we had a good conversation before we started recording. And so it's only right that we go ahead and get some of this on tape now. So, yeah, man, for starters, how about how about you just talk a bit about where you come from and how it was for you growing up?
Sure, yeah, no problem. I'm a '57 Chevy. I'm a classic.
Classic.
Yeah, I'm a classic. I was raised in a little windswept, cold ass prairie town, Weyburn, Saskatchewan, small town, 10,000 people. My mother and father were both alcoholics. My mother was in and out of mental clinics when I was, mental hospitals when I was growing up. It wasn't exactly what you'd call, Leave It to Beaver back then.
Hmm.
Um, but then when I was just before I was starting grade one, my oldest brother got killed in a farming accident. My dad was driving a tractor, and that was the single biggest tragedy, on top of the rest of the chaos of an alcoholic household. And I went into grade one, and I woke up in grade four. Is something called dissociative disorder, which I've just found out about recently, like within the last 2 or 3 years.
Whoa.
So, and really honestly, it was just my normal, I mean, it was just, I mean, that's all I knew, right? You're a kid growing up. And so by the time I was 14 and started have my first beer, I was already an alcoholic, alcohol, drugs, I was like a petty criminal, I guess, peddling drugs and stuff like that. And anyway, so I sobered up, 29 years old, and I said, this is going to kill me. I'm going to die if I keep up this kind of a lifestyle. So I quit the drugs and the alcohol and said, wow, there we go. I'll be good now. Yeah. Okay. What about the
Hmm.
emotional hangover? So anyway, through the rest of my life, through 30 some years, I had this obsessive need to know about the human condition. And later, when I read about dissociative disorder, that's a known characteristic of people with dissociative disorder is that, you have this driving need to understand humanity, the human systems, that sort of thing. And plus, I was a journalist. That was my original training, and worked in the mainstream media, worked for government, saw all this stuff. And I mean, even back then, I lasted.
Okay, so you work from behind the
Yeah,
curtain.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I seen how it all worked,
Wow.
and it's disgusting.
Were you
you
part were
know,
you part of the Ministry of Truth?
Yeah, yeah. Well, basically, I mean, the Regina Leader Post, which was a newspaper of record, I was an editor there, and I lasted 2.5 years there. And I said, all we're doing, and I wasn't able to frame it in how I can now, but back then it was like, Jesus, all I am doing, freedom of the press belongs to those who own one. So
Hmm.
back then, if you wrote a pro union story, for example, at that paper, you're on your way out. I mean, there was rules and nothing overtly stated. Everybody just knew what the rules were, right? So I got that, and then I worked for the provincial government as an information officer. I worked everywhere from the guys in the field right up to assistant deputy minister's office, and I saw the nasty political stuff and the control that the bureaucracy has and the deputy ministers have over what actually goes on within that department. Anyway, I got disgusted with that. It lasted 4.5 years there, left a good pension, shit like that. Started my own business and was fairly successful at that, but always with this need to know this, like, what the
Human
yeah,
condition.
well, what about the human what is this? What is this place, So, by the time I was 59, I was divorced, second divorce, and it was like, what is this? And I have some background in film and television production, and so an editor friend of mine said, have you ever heard about this ayahuasca stuff? As soon as he said that word ayahuasca, something just clicked in my head, and I knew right then at that point that I would be doing it, like without a doubt. When I talked to my daughter,
And you had no previous knowledge about
nothing,
it prior to hearing?
nothing.
but it just something just spoke
Yep.
to you,
Just the word.
struck a chord.
Yeah,
Wow.
just the word ayahuasca. And he was telling me in relation to his brother who was hooked on heroin. And he said, wow, I'd really like to get this ayahuasca because, it's good for getting people off drugs, right? So that's all I knew about it at that time. Went home, did a search, didn't even know how to spell it. Ayahuasca? What is this stuff? So
Mhm.
did a little bit of research, found out you had to do it in Peru, but I deliberately did not read about other people's experiences, and I never did any research in that regard. Went on YouTube or whatever and saw ceremonies or whatever. I deliberately did not do that, and that's just my journalistic background, where I don't want to influence how I'm thinking about this based on other people's experiences. I want to experience it, in as pristine a state or a pure state of mind as I can. So that was sort of the events that led up to me going down to Peru with a buddy of mine. The guy that took me to Peru is now, he'd been working with medicine quite a bit. Past 9 years, had gone down to Peru every year. He is now an amazing. He's my spirit brother. He's an amazing Canadian shaman, and his ceremonies. For me, it was like you can do a ceremony in Peru, you can do a ceremony in Canada, and it's a different environment, different setting. But to me, the healing was exactly the same. So yeah, it was quite a journey to get to that point. So when I came back from Peru with my daughter, and I just tell people, if you get a chance to do ayahuasca with a family member, just do it, because it knocks down so many of these walls, these conceptions we have of ourselves, obviously, but also our relationships with people. And it just knocked down all these father-daughter barriers I had with my daughter. And we've done about 80 or 90 ceremonies together now. So she is amazing, and she's very strong in this work. So if you ever get the chance to do something with your family member, I would say yes, go for it, because it's great.
And for your initial experience, the main reason was the fact that you wanted to try to figure out or just get an answer in some way about this beckoning you had of what the human condition was all about, what's going on with it.
Well, yeah,
Or did you have a few different reasons for you wanting to take that first trip?
it was for self-healing. Like, I mean, at that point, I'd done
Hmm.
went through every self-help book on the planet. I should have bought shares in that industry.
And you've been through a lot from what you were just speaking about your childhood, and your parents and your brother and just the drug use and the
Oh,
alcohol abuse yourself. That's a lot.
I was a
It's a
mess.
lot of baggage. Yeah.
I was a psychological minefield. I was emotionally shut down. I
Hmm.
was, you can't come through that kind of stuff and not have it affect you. Like, when I was 29, I quit and I said, oh, yeah, I'll be good now. No, 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 no. All of those driving, subconscious driving forces from your childhood, the Jesuits will tell you, give me the boy from 1 to 7 and I'll show you the man.
Mm.
Well, the 1 to 7 for me was chaos, that ended with the death of my very dear brother. So that's that's how the man got created, right? So yeah, I was a bit of a mess. I had psoriatic arthritis so bad I couldn't hardly walk up a set of stairs. I go to the gym now. I have no pain. I have no arthritis. All of those systemic illnesses like arthritis or whatever, in the way I view the world now, are tied to emotional components within your body. So if you heal those emotional components, that's when you can heal yourself physically. The physicality of it follows those emotional components. So yeah, no more arthritis. God, my body feels good.
I was just reading about that, and there was a talk about the human dimension, and you have two parts of it, and you just said the psychological aspect of it, and then you also have the somatic aspect of it, body and mind, and then you have this the spirit. So those things, yeah, they coexist, and one affects the other for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I kind of look at it like a computer. You clear out the malware and the spyware and the all these nasty things, and the computer just runs better. But it also speaks to the spirit, what people call the spiritual component of this medicine,
Mm-hmm.
that was that was a real. I mean, this medicine.
Yeah, I'm curious, Alan. Can you I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm just curious how that first experience was
Oh
for you.
my
How
God.
yeah, can you break a little bit of that
Sure,
down?
sure, sure, sure. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, it's in the book, so I guess I can. I don't usually talk about my ceremonies a lot because people can get the wrong ideas from things. But I put it in the book, so I guess there must have been a reason for it. So there I am in Peru, and we'd done all the pre-ceremony diet. My buddy is there, thank God, because he was so helpful for me. And so I'm sitting on this mat, and they give me this shot of stuff. So it tastes. I don't like the taste. So you shoot it back, and I'm sitting there, waiting, seeing what's going on, and all of a sudden, I am talking to somebody, something, some other, and I'm seeing these visions, right? And the visions are this vine growing down, and this is kind of this brownish vine and some green leaves and stuff. It wasn't particularly appealing to me, right? And somebody is saying to me, ayahuasca, "You see how beautiful I am?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm trapped in here with a vain plant."
Mm. The
Right.
vanity.
Yeah. But I mean, it's all for my own benefit, which I find out in ayahuasca ceremonies now. Every ayahuasca ceremony that you do will be different from the ceremony that you had before. You can take the same medicine in the same setting, and there's no known effects to this medicine. So the question is, what's the intelligence? This medicine comes with baked in intelligence. And every time you do something, it is custom tailored for your healing or whatever your intentions are for your healing. That's a customized experience. That's pretty intelligent, if you ask me. So, anyway, as I'm sitting there in the ceremony, now here's where intention comes into this. I got to give you a little background here. Intention, they said, Al, set an intention before your ceremony, something you want to accomplish. So I'm going, what intention? What intention? And through all the work that I've been doing, I had come to the conclusion that I'm a fear-based person, which stemmed from chaos in my childhood where it's a fearful environment. So my first intention
Yeah.
was show me the nature of my fears, which I thought was pretty good. And I tell people this story now, and they said, "You did what?" Yeah, I said, "Show me So anyway, in the ceremony, at one point in the ceremony, I'm sitting up at the end of my mat, as lucid as you and I'm listening to people in the Mloka, and people are throwing up and doing. I'm like, "What the hell am I doing here?" Ayahuasca had her driver out, and she just went, "Boom," and I got driven, punted into what I call the cosmic junkyard. I was nothing. I was a speck of sand, whatever, in a gray mass, a universe of nothingness that was just more nothingness. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know anything. Right. So I'm sitting there, which I don't know, maybe it sounds scary to people or whatever, but it was a pretty unique experience. And so I'm sitting in there, and then all of a sudden, I hear this thing. It's an Icaro. The Icaros are the sacred songs sung by the shamans, right? So at that point, I said, whoa, wait a minute. If I'm hearing something, that must mean that I exist. So I followed the Icaro back to the ceremony and came back to myself. And I couldn't tell you my name. I didn't know what my name was. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who I was. And this is something that they refer to, I found out later, as the ayahuasca death, in where it's kind of like, and this is sometimes characteristic of ayahuasca ceremonies in general. You get to practice things in an ayahuasca ceremony to teach you things. It's experiential teaching that, when you think about it later, when you do what's called integration, when you think about it later, there's a lesson in that experience, right? But at that time, I was just like, what the whole, I scared myself. I scared myself with that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that was a highlight of that ceremony. So the next day, I'm talking to the shamans. My buddy says, "What the fuck is with this? This is insane." I says, "I think I'll go home." And now I'm, and it's a good thing I wasn't in Canada, because I probably would have just jumped in my car and drove home. But I'm in Peru. I'm down there for, a month. I don't have return tickets or whatever. I'm in the jungle. So there was 3 words that it was a Chilean shaman that was there. And he says to me, "Well, Al," he says, "it's a process." And that's what got me back into my second ceremony. So anyway, just to finish off this little fear thing, next ceremony, and then they tell me, "Ground yourself." You might as well tell me to wave a magic wand and ground myself. What the hell is that supposed to be? So in my next ceremony, I'm going. You can go into vision, open-eyed vision, closed-eyed vision. I would go into vision closed-eyed, right? So I'm going to these closed-eyed visions, and I'd be looking at this stuff, and then I'd open my eyes, and I'd go, "My name's Allan Finney. I came here on flight 2897 Air Canada. I'm in Peru."
This is how you ground yourself.
Near as I could figure out, I don't know.
It's the opposite of float yourself, huh?
It was insane. So anyway, fourth ceremony, ayahuasca comes to me and she says, "Hey, Al." I says, "What?" She says, "Do you remember that first ceremony?" I said, "Yeah."
Now, this is auditory, right? It's not like you're hearing your own thoughts, but you're hearing a voice. You're hearing it.
Telepathic communication.
Telepathic.
Nobody's sitting there talking to you. Although my daughter, she's been in ceremonies where her and I was just sat down on a couch and had a chat. I'm assuming it was telepathic. It's inside your head. Like, it's like you and me talking. Yeah, it's like you and me have a conversation, right? And she says, "You remember that?" And I says, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." She says, and here it's always struck me, "I don't bring fear to a ceremony." So in other words, what she was telling me was that experience, I could look at it as a fearful experience, or like if it happened now, it'd be a lot of fun. I'd like to really do that again. But she doesn't bring fear. Yeah, because it was a unique experience. It was amazing. And it's kind of like being in a car wreck. When it's happening, you're not thinking, "Oh my God, I'm scared. Oh, this is," well, I had no identity. So, but, that was the pregnant lesson from that thing. I don't bring fear to ceremony. So what she was telling, she answered that question, that intention that I had, show me the nature of my fear. Well, our ultimate fear of everyone on earth, and one of the biggest control mechanisms on earth, is our own death, right? People will give up liberty for safety. People will give up, take this jab because you might die. The whole insurance industry is built on that. It's all comes back to, well, at least this is the lesson I took out of it. It all comes back to that primal fear of death.
All of these health products to keep you alive, or keep you alive longer, or to keep you looking younger for as long as possible. We
all have this, in our society, it's a Western society, for lack of a better term. We have a pathological fear of our own death. I can tell you right now, I don't fear my death. Well, that's what I say, but maybe when the time comes, it might be a little bit traumatic or whatever. But and what ayahuasca does is, I was out of balance emotionally or energetically, however you want to look at it. And all of these experiences are designed to rebalance myself as a human being. And I could, go on and on and on for that. But it brings those high energetic, high emotional charges back into your own humanness. And that's the way I look at ayahuasca. But, just for people out there that are, that are going, "Jesus, Martha, this guy says he talks to plants." I can offer you DNA level evidence that proves what I'm talking about, if you're interested.
Yeah, let's hear like a good overview of how that goes.
Sure. Yeah. In the Amazon jungle, there are nominally 40,000 plant species. 40,000. Okay. Ayahuasca is made out of 2 plants. It's the only psychedelic on earth that is made out of 2 plants. The odds, and I'm going, well, what are the odds of of somebody combining these two plants to make ayahuasca. So I figured out the odds: 40,000 times 40,000. The odds, if you and I, Richard, went down to the jungle in Peru and decided to make some ayahuasca, it's a 1 in 1.6 billion chance that we would randomly combine two plants and make the
That's funny
ayahuasca
that
brew.
you said that, because in my head before you brought this up, I was thinking, who in the hell came up with this concoction?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So, Richard Schultz, the father of modern ethnobotany, he was down in the Amazon jungle studying this stuff, 150 years ago or whatever it was. And so that was his question. How did you guys come up with this ayahuasca? Because he had specifically studied ayahuasca. And he asked them, how did you come up with this? And what the people that had invented this medicine told him was, the plants told us.
Mm.
That that's the people that invented ayahuasca. The plants told us to do it. And so, it's like Sherlock Holmes, that thing with Sherlock Holmes, where if you've eliminated the impossible, whatever's left over, no matter how illogical or how fantastic, has to be the truth of the matter. So, that's from the people. But even when you think of combining those two plants, it's a specialized process to cook those plants,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, the alchem. Yeah, that's another thing. If you do get the ingredients, but how are you brewing it and cooking it and processing it to where it produces these effects?
Yep. And exactly. So that's another impossibility layered on the 1.6 billion. I don't know how to do the odds, but if there's any statisticians out there, you can figure it out. So when the Amazonian Indians, what ayahuasca is in their system is something called a master plant. In other words, these are the plants in the jungle that hold the knowledge of the jungle, right? You say, "Oh, that's crazy." Like, what do you mean? But it's just like any human society. I mean, there's the dumbasses and there's the really smart people, right? So that's the same thing that happens in the jungle, is that there are master plants. Ayahuasca is a master plant. Bobansana is a master plant. Mapacho is a master plant. There are master plants within the jungle that are useful to human beings, right? So even if that sounds crazy, there's an author in Germany, actually, where you're at. I forget his name. Anyway, he wrote a book, and within that book, he coined the term the wood wide web. So modern researchers are starting to find out. So they're wondering, like, why is this stump still alive? It should have been dead a long time ago. What's going on? It's got green shoots coming off. There are, and they recognize this scientifically, that there are master plants in a functioning forest ecosystem that's using the mycelium layer just a couple inches under the soil, the fungus mycelium system, to not only communicate, but they have the ability to deliver nutrients to a dying plant in the forest. And that's science. That's hard science. That's documented. Guys have written books about it. So even Western science is recognizing
Hmm.
the existence of master plants within a forest ecosystem. Now, where science diverges and where the Amazonian Indian knowledge diverges is, they can tell you that there are master plants. Well, the Amazonian Indians can tell you how to talk to the master plants. They know how to do that. And they've been developing that technology, scientifically verified, for over 3,000 years. You're going to find out some stuff in 3,000 years when you're doing this type of thing.
It only makes sense. Well, if you look at it in a survival and just the sense of, now our society nowadays, we're so far removed from nature in itself. We don't we're trying to conquer nature, we're trying to control nature, but you have the Amazonians, you have the natives, you have people that are still involved in their environments. They're still one with their surroundings, that this is their form of survival. They have to understand, they have to know the times, the seasons, they have to know when the wind shifts, when there's a predator around, and they have to know the plants that are edible, the plants that aren't edible. So I would imagine that these people are still in tuned with. There's even some, I guess it probably would be correct to say that the Amazonians, there's some natives and some tribes that they believe that everything has a spirit. There's certain spirits that watch over the lake. There's certain spirits that watch over the mountains. There's certain spirits that are involved in the plants, and there's specific spirits that are an animal. You have animal spirits and things like that. So they're very in tune with this stuff, and so that would make sense that they are able to also communicate. Not all, but maybe the ones that are very in tune. And I guess though you have the shamans, the ones that are on that level of dialogue and that level of spirituality where they're very in tune and they're able to relay the message and facilitate this type of information to the rest of the people.
The best book I've ever read on that subject that describes exactly what you're talking about is The Wizard of the Upper Amazon by F. Bruce Lamb. And this was a book that was written in the 1930s, and you can still find it on Amazon or wherever. But that's what you've just said is exactly what they used ayahuasca for. They used ayahuasca for survival in the jungle, for mastering their jungle environment, for all kinds of very practical purposes. Okay, anyway, so this book is about a guy by the name of Manuel Cordova Rios, and he was a young rubber cutter. This was when the rubber cutter wars were going on in the Amazon jungle because latex was a very valuable resource. So these rubber cutters would come in and shoot the Amazonian Indians and steal the latex, right? So this Hun Kun tribe, it's one of 160 indigenous cultures that have been identified in the Amazon. Zumu, the shaman chief, tells his warriors, hey, there's 4 rubber cutters. They're located 4 days hike that way. Bring that boy to me and kill the other ones. So these Amazon warriors trot off and bring Manuel Cordova Rios back with them. He's a 19-year-old kid. So what Zumu's son, who he was grooming to be the next shaman chief, had been killed. And Zumu was old. He wanted this 19-year-old, right? So they brought him back to the tribe. First thing they do is prepare him for an ayahuasca ceremony. And this is an ayahuasca culture. I mean, exactly what you're talking about. They use it for practical matters of survival in the Amazonian jungle. So they start giving him ayahuasca ceremonies. After one ceremony, he relates in the book, I could understand the language of these Indians. Couldn't speak it, but he understood what they're saying. So, again, practical matters of the tribe. They had a group of people in that tribe that were night hunters. And I don't know if you've ever been in the jungle, but at night it's pitch black. So what would happen, and this happened to Cordova Rios, and he actually gained the ability to hunt at night in the Amazonian jungle. And it's the energetic signatures of the plants, of the trees. It's like lighting up everything, and if I said to you right now, oh, let's go hunting in the Amazon jungle at night, what would you need? Night vision goggles? Could you even do it? Right? These guys could navigate in the jungle at night as well as they could in the day. And they were so attuned to their environment. Cordova Rios is sitting with these guys around. They're out night hunting, so they were preparing to go on the hunt. All of a sudden, two of them hear a particular insect call in the jungle. Now, if you go down to it's a frigging cacophony of noise. It is a wall of noise in the jungle. I mean, it's just constant, right? And they hear this particular insect call. And so now everybody is alert, because if they caught this insect, it would be good luck. They considered it good luck for the hunt. So they sat there in silence for, I think it was 2 or 3 hours, and they hear it call again. Two of the hunters, one goes one way, the other goes the other way. They converge on the bush that this insect is on in the jungle in night, and they
Wow.
capture the lucky insect. You and I would consider that, if I told you I could hunt at night in the jungle, oh, you're talking about a supernatural ability. If a human being wasn't capable of doing that, physiologically, we couldn't do it, right? And yet, by tapping into the wisdom of these master plants, they're hunting at night in the jungle. So,
Without any night goggles, military equipment, nothing.
yeah, yeah. The early researchers into ayahuasca, they originally from some Europeans that had studied it, they called it telepathine. So they're saying that this ayahuasca stuff is gives you telepathic abilities, and for a lot of us out there, maybe a medium could do it, maybe aliens could do it. Is telepathic. I've been in ceremonies where the shaman, a good friend of mine, Noe Lopez, I'm sitting on my mat and he's over, two guys over singing an echo, and he says, "Hey Al, what do you think? Pretty cool ceremony, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty cool in the way." So that's the Shipibo master plants. But there's all kinds of master plants in that forest ecosystem, and ayahuasca is kind of known as the ambassador to the master plants. So I've been introduced to other master plants. There's something called a dieta that the apprentices will do. And a dieta is they know the characteristics of all of these plants. Some are good for opening up your heart. Some are good for psychological problems. Some are good for physicality. Some are good for cancer treatment, that sort of thing. So they will go into the jungle for a year and consume that plant. Now this isn't a psychedelic experience. They consume that plant with the known characteristics, and they develop a relationship with that plant. And then if the dieta is successful, the plant and the apprentice agree that that spirit will take up residence in the apprentice and become available to help people heal their heart or psychological problems or what have you, right? And I've done dietas. We got put on some dietas in Peru, not year-long dietas. Longest I've done is a month, but I can tell you that's real. That's as real as you and I sitting here talking about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, the historical evidence points to it, and now the scientific evidence points to it. So when I say I'm talking to a plant, I'm talking to a
That's
plant.
very interesting, and I'm going to have to look that book up that you referred to, because it only makes sense if they're in need to survive. They have to be 100% in tuned, respectful, and open to their environment and their surroundings, just like an animal, a beast, uh, a bird, or anything is. They know when the winds are shifting, and okay, we got to migrate this way. Let's get the hell out of here because it's going to get cold. There's not going to be any food. So
If you want to read one book about ayahuasca and truly understand what the capabilities of that medicine is, this was Cordova Rios. That was from the early 1900s when he was a rubber cutter, and it was the Hunkun Indians that were engaged in this war, this rubber war, right? So
mhm.
the information is all in that particular historic time frame and stuff. So it's very enlightening as to, oh, it's amazing. It's a page turner. It's just so
So
interesting.
it's documented. Okay. This was what I was going to get to, because I'd like you to break it down, because there's probably people listening, and like we spoke a little bit about this before we started recording, was the fact that some people, they're afraid of how safe this really is. You know, the side effects, long-term side effects. Are there
Right.
is there a way to overdose? Will I come back the same? Will I fry my brain, you know, and be mentally well? I mean, well, if you will I come back the same? Maybe that might not be such a bad thing if you don't come back the same, you know, because a lot of people are out there reaching for something. They're in search of something. They're in need of something.
Yeah.
I would say that for the most part, people aren't going there just to get high. I guess you just move at your own risk. I don't know if you can talk a little bit about, well, first of all, the side
Sure,
effects
sure,
and,
sure, sure.
you know, the
Yeah.
safety of it.
And that's a class of people I label as psychonauts. They're trying every medicine, cure, LSD, this, that, the other thing, peyote, bufo,
Mushrooms,
mushrooms,
DMT.
and they're good at it, and they enjoy it. And I don't begrudge them doing ayahuasca because it's a beneficial plant. But just in terms of your own safety in an ayahuasca, by like consuming ayahuasca, for one thing, ayahuasca, the psychoactive agent that science has identified as dimethyltryptamine, you manufacture dimethyltryptamine in your body. That gives you the ability to dream. So in that case, it's what do they call it? An entheogen, where it's something that you manufacture in the body or whatever.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So ayahuasca floods, gives you a good dose of dimethyltryptamine. And I look at it and I don't look at it in those scientific terms. To me, ayahuasca is the on ramp to the cosmic experience, or what I call journeying to ayahuasca's world. It's the on ramp. It opens, it lights up your brain in a whole bunch of different ways. And all of a sudden, the brain likes to stay at a low energetic state. That's just what a brain does if you look at the brain science. And so ayahuasca says, oh, no, let's turn everything on here. So let's turn on the telepathy. Let's turn on your ability to see beyond what you normally see. Let's open you up here. So that's what it does. So is that safe? Yes, absolutely, 100% safe. The ICEERS, which does a lot of the science, it's an organization headquartered in Spain, but I consider them to be one of the most credible organizations out there. And they did a study a few years back about how many people around the world take ayahuasca. They looked at the media reported deaths. They did a particular study into that. There's been 58 high-profile deaths attributed to ayahuasca by the mainstream media. And in all 58 cases where they went out and got the official autopsy reports, none of the autopsy reports attributed death to any report to ayahuasca. So you're not going to die. And the other thing of it is like long-term effects. So there's been long-term large studies of ayahuasca people that regularly take ayahuasca. And a lot of that is through the early ayahuasca churches that were established in the early 1900s. And so they looked at long-term ayahuasca users and they studied these people, and they found out they have better diets. They score better on standard psychological profiles. They are more family oriented. They're more community oriented. So that's long-term effects. The ayahuasca is something that is called neurogenetic, which means that it stimulates the production of brain cells. There are other neurogenetic plants out there, mainly mushrooms, that will stimulate the production of brain cells. So ayahuasca is forging new neural pathways within your brain. So, for example,
Okay, it's firing new
yes,
connections.
there's new connections being made. You're being rewired. That part of the brain that sits between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, I forget what they call it. It's the bridge between the two halves of the brain, and long-term ayahuasca users, it's thicker and it's bigger. So there's more neural pathways between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere in the brain. So, that's one of the physical characteristics. So,
Okay.
just in terms of long-term,
And they have studies showing
yeah,
that where
yeah,
they
they've done MRIs of people, and seeing how the brain lights up, stuff like
wow,
that.
okay.
I don't pay a lot of of attention to the science because I come at it more from an experiential or
Yeah, right.
viewpoint. But yeah, those studies are available and are out there. We a group I work with in Canada, we have researchers and some scientists. We got a psychedelic pharmacist in the group. This guy's amazing, and they're heavy into that stuff. The science and stuff like that. But any of the studies that are coming out, long-term ayahuasca use make you a better person. For me, long and short of it.
And
So,
you know firsthand because this is something that you've been part of you've been part of numerous ceremonies, right? And you also a facilitator as well?
well, there's people that I call commercial shamans, that go out, and I support these people, and I can give you some background as what it takes to sit down and give ayahuasca to people. I do my own ceremonies. Most of my ceremonies now in Mexico are solo ceremonies. I take it by myself for my own
Okay.
use. But friends, family, or a guy from Canada kept bugging me, Al, I want to do a ceremony. I said, well, I'm in Mexico. He came down to Mexico. Yeah, we did some ceremonies. I did just recently. I did some ceremonies with this Mexican guy. He was visiting from Mexico City for a month, and I knew him just through a family connection. And this guy was at the end of his rope. He had lost his way. He's world weary. He's an old man like me, and he couldn't see any reason to go on. I don't know if he is suicidal or not or whatever. So we got this psychologist who spoke Spanish and English, because my Spanish is a Spanglish and his English was whatever. So, it's essential that we're able to
Hmm.
communicate. So this guy would come into the ceremonies and just act as a go-between, right? So then I felt safe going ahead and giving this guy ayahuasca. Well, I'd originally scheduled 2 ceremonies to say, yeah, we'll do a couple ceremonies. We wound up doing 6 because this guy took the ayahuasca like duck to water, and we still keep in touch, and he tells me he loves me, and I tell him I love him, because when you go through an ayahuasca ceremony, with the people in that ceremony, you go, even if you're kind of not aware of it, but it's a shared experience, and it's a
Yeah.
very powerful experience, and it opens you up energetically. And these other people, I mean, people always talk, people kind of concentrate sometime on the difficult aspects of ayahuasca. Oh, I got to deal with this. Oh, I don't want to look at that. And and they come into it with trepidation. But I'm telling you, some of the most fun I've ever had has been in ayahuasca ceremonies. I mean, when you feel, and this is part of the teaching. Look at here's your joy, here's your laughter. Reconnect with that. Reconnect like that with when you were a child, you rediscover that joy of life. And that's what happened to my Mexican guy. He's just on fire now, and it puts you back to a maybe a child egoic state. I don't know how to explain it, but you get to experience life joyfully. Like I hear birds singing out my window now, and it's just some of the most amazing things. I go listen to that song, and that's that I don't know, the new neural pathways or whatever, and how all that works, I don't know. But when I listen to that bird, man, yeah, that's beautiful. That song is just incredible.
Do you hear that from other people and your experience just being involved with it, dealing with the plant yourself and people that you know that have undergone the ceremonies, that the effect is long lasting and it's not one, or maybe because you just mentioned it and said that it's rewiring and firing new neurons and making new connections in your brain, that it lasts a lot longer than just that once the honeymoon effect wears off and now it's back to how it was. You have the holiday's beautiful, and then you get back to life and oh man, I'm back to the humdrum of it all, mundane
Yeah, yeah,
Mondays.
yeah. Yeah. No, Richard, for me, it's permanent, long lasting. I know lots of people that have done ayahuasca, and it's not something. In fact, people will say, oh yeah, I need to get to another ceremony. I've done this, but it's reset your new normal. It's a reset of that new normal. Like when you go into an ayahuasca ceremony, say you're treatment resistant depression, or you're world weary or whatever, right?
Yeah, a
And
nihilistic.
yeah, you go into it, and I've never seen anybody revert back to that state. And my theory on that myself is that it's, see, all of these things in our head, and this is, a lot from the studies that I did before ayahuasca, and then what I know about dissociative disorder now. But it's that energetic process that, what you're dealing with in that ayahuasca ceremony, what particular issue, because you can't do it all at once, that particular issue is done, is gone. And I'm not saying it's completely rebalanced yet. Maybe you need a half dozen ceremonies to completely rebalance it. But when I came away from that first set of ceremonies in Peru, my life was changed. I never went back to that state that I had been in before. And a lot of this stems from awareness, because ayahuasca, like if you look at the Peruvian declaration from their cultural department, says ayahuasca will show you the foundations of this world. And that's an official government declaration from the government of Peru. And I would say ayahuasca will show you the foundations of yourself. And understanding the truth of yourself is an awareness, so you don't revert back to those states. I don't think you could go back. I mean, if I even wanted to, I couldn't go back to where I was before. It's impossible. And you see this in, this is borne out in the science as well. So for like treatment resistant depression, right? These people have been on antidepressants for years, right? They go into an ayahuasca ceremony, they don't take any more antidepressants, but their life score improves, their psychological profile improves. And look at the long-term studies as well. It's to me, it's from a personal perspective, and then from the science. Here's the way I explain it. Okay, let's say you're living in a shoebox, right? And ayahuasca, you take this ayahuasca stuff, and ayahuasca comes and says, "You want me to take the lid off that shoebox?" And you go, "What do you mean? What shoebox?" Yeah, sure, I guess. Take it off. So she takes the lid off, and you get to look around. And then, at the end of the ceremony, the lid goes back on, but it doesn't go back on the same way. It's a whatever happened in that ceremony, whatever's done in that ceremony is finished.
That's
It's done.
powerful. That's some powerful stuff. And your daughter also, right? Your daughter has went through a few ceremonies herself, or does it go? Is it something you do like every few months, or just when you think you need to get in touch with that plant spirit?
Yeah, for me, and this is kind of typical of people that take the medicine. So I started taking the medicine, and I found out some stuff about myself. Now, you can't clear all that stuff up in
One
one
session.
ceremony. This idea of 10 years of therapy in one night. Yeah, okay, sure. I don't know what they're talking about, but you can't clear everything up in one ceremony. So you'll find people like my Mexican friend who wanted to keep doing more ceremonies. He's working on something. He found out something about himself, and now he's working on it. He was like, "Al," I called it pizza for him, before this ceremony. He says, "Yeah, Antonio, esta es pizza." So he keeps going, "Más pizza, más pizza. I would need more pizza." Right? So you start working on something. You realize there's a path forward. You realize that you don't have to live in whatever hell I was living in. I don't have to do that. So I was driven to get to those next ceremonies, right? So as luck would have it, like my shaman friend, he was the guy that originally took me to Peru, had done 9 years of trips down there, and he was on his way to becoming a shaman. He didn't even know it at the time, but I was in the fortunate good position of being able to assist in his ceremonies, and I was helping organize ceremonies. We were importing ayahuasca from Peru, and the government didn't really seem to care about the shipments, and so I always had an opportunity to take ayahuasca. And then when my daughter and I went down for our first trip, I was just like, here again, it was just so profoundly life altering. And we've done, oh God, we've done 80 and 90 ceremonies together, because She was living with her mom in Saskatchewan, and it was kind of a little bit of a dysfunctional mess there. So I said, "Come on out to where I was, and I'll help you get through university, and you can hang out here." And she said, "Oh, yeah, 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 Dad." So I mean, we had done ceremonies in Peru, and now we're with my shaman buddy, and we're doing ceremonies in my living room at my place, and stuff like that. So she was heavily involved in that. But I mean, God, if you can do ayahuasca with a family member, I highly, highly recommend that, because ayahuasca shows you the foundation of the world, according to the Peruvian government. For me, it's ayahuasca shows you the foundation of yourself, but it also shows you the foundation of your relationships to your loved ones, your relationship to the world, your relationship to what you do for a living, what decisions you make, that sort of thing. There's an awareness there. And oh, my daughter and I love each other so much. It's just, knock down this father daughter relationship stuff that gets built up when you're raising a kid. And we're just two human beings now, but God, we have so much fun. We would do ceremonies like in Peru, and at the end of the ceremony, a lot of people just go to sleep or whatever. We would be talking for hours to 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and it's beautiful. And even now, like she's in Canada, I'm in Mexico, but we'll get together on the internet there and just chat and laugh and giggle and talk about our lives and stuff like that. It's beautiful. It's a completely different relationship, that we have now. And she's very strong in this work.
Okay, now she's involved. Then she's doing her part.
Yeah, she's doing an apprenticeship with my shaman buddy friend in Canada. I owe him such a debt of gratitude. He's just such an amazing individual. And here's the thing with people that are serving medicine outside of the jungle, as gringos.
Uh huh.
I make the distinction between New World shamanism and Old World shamanism.
Ah, that's good that you brought that up, because I was just going to ask you, what does it take for somebody to call themselves a shaman? Now, I understand in the traditional sense, you have some of them are passed down from generation to generation, and you have to go through these series of, I guess it would be their own type of apprenticeship, but for somebody else that
Yeah.
is not dealing with it in the jungle. I think that's probably where you were getting at, anyways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when I went to Peru, we were sitting with a fellow by the name of Roger Lopez. He had actually been raised in the jungle by his dad, lineage shaman. What most people would consider a lineage Shipibo shaman. He'd been raised in the jungle. He didn't go to school when he was a kid. His education came later, like the formal education or Western education or whatever you call it. And this guy could do stuff in an ayahuasca ceremony that he oh my God, he showed me some stuff in these ayahuasca ceremonies, and
What
it's
do you mean that
it's
he can do?
amazing.
Is it the way that he conducts it, or what's his purpose in the ceremony? Because from my understanding, once you take that tea or that brew, you're pretty much you're on your own. But is there a reason for these other people around? Are they doing anything in particular?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're singing the sacred icaros.
Ah, got
So
you.
so and that's like they're channeling these icaros. A lot of them can't or won't sing icaros outside of an ayahuasca ceremony. So
Oh,
they're bringing these
sacred
healing songs.
chants.
Yeah, oh man, if you want to hear some of the most profoundly beautiful music, is these shamans singing these icaros. It just transports you to some place or other. And that's what they do. They can kind of direct what's happening or what's going on in those ceremonies. So for example, we had what's called a tranquilo ceremony, like a quiet ceremony. Yeah, and they're singing these Icaros, and nobody's, whoa, whoa, I'm having problems or whatever, and it was just such a tranquil, beautiful. So they can direct to an extent what that they work in conjunction with this plant intelligence, and they say, help my brothers puke or help my
Are they taking it
brothers.
with you, or they're
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you have, yeah, they take ayahuasca just like you do
okay?
in the ceremony, but they're masters. Let me give you an example of one ceremony. We brought Roger up to British Columbia. We were doing some ceremonies there, and I know these shamans, right? Like I'd been with him in Peru and stuff like that. And so this Chilean shaman Andre. I can hear them like, oh yeah, this one's for Allan, you know, and I'm like, they bring me back this horking cup of ayahuasca, and I go, okay. And I mean, when you're in a ceremony, you drink what you're given because a lot of this is done intuitively, right? So you don't take half of it and give the other half back. That's, you know, it's just not done. So I slug back this horking big cup of ayahuasca, and I'm sitting at the edge of my mat and I'm watching Roger. And he had these two people that came into the ceremony that were a little arrogant or whatever, right? I mean, I met him and the guy was all about his money, drove his BMW right up to the deck, you know, stuff like this. So Roger, I'm watching him, you know, in vision, and he is directing these visions towards these two guys. I mean, that's the only way. It was beautiful. It was amazing, but there was a directionality to what he's doing, right? And it just blew my mind. So then after a while, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, the visions are coming after me. And I, you know, at that point, I've done, I don't know, 100 ceremonies or whatever, and the visions are coming at me, like, you know, and they're just getting intense. At first it was really beautiful, and then it's so intense, and I'm like, what's this going on? And then somebody kind of grabs me by my spiritual shoulder and yanks me out of that, and I'm in this space. And in this space, I'm seeing in the distance two figures, right, indistinct figures, and I'm hearing what's called a soplar, which is the shamans will soplar people. It's like they're an exhalation of breath, or you know, it's
Okay,
a,
yeah, I've seen that. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I'm hearing these soplars, but every time I hear the soplar, this castle of visions that I'm looking at grows and expands, and then and then it expands and expands again, and it was huge, immense, or whatever, right? So later, I'm talking to another. She'd been down in Peru and talked to people down there in Colombia and stuff like that. And she was explaining to me, well, she spoke Spanish, which is very helpful down
Mm-hmm.
there. She was explaining to me that that's something known as castle building. Like the shamans down there know how to build visionary castles and direct castles. And you know, for me, that's like, wow,
Whoa.
that's an amazing thing to do. But really, my intention, and if you're a shaman, I guess that's some ability that you have, or that you're supposed to have, or that you're at some point have the ability to do something like that. But for me, you know, the only reason I was in those ceremonies was for my own personal healing. That was it. All my intentions. I don't care about your fancy tricks. I don't care if you can, you know, trace
Yes.
your family lineage back 300 generations or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. My spirit brother Enon, the guy I went down with, that when I was in Peru, he would drum on the floor. And I said, man, you're a shaman. Oh no, you got blah, blah, blah. I said, it doesn't matter if I'm sitting in front of him or if I'm sitting in front of the Shipibo shaman, it's the same effect. Like I'm getting that same energetic effect, whether it's him or somebody else. So
Right.
when you start talking about new world shamanism, right? These are people, you know, everybody I know, everybody that's in our group has a Peruvian or an Amazonian maestro that they work with. They've learned to take the medicine. Some people I know have done year-long dietas in the jungle, you know, and you can ask them, like, hey, how did you come? How did you come to this? What are you doing? You know, what kind of an apprenticeship did you do? Because it's all done as an apprenticeship, right? So these people that are serving the medicine here, certainly the people in our group, are very knowledgeable, dedicated new world shamans. And a lot of people, you know, this shamanism stuff, this idea of shaman, well, a lot of time it denotes a position of authority, right? So I don't like the word shaman. I prefer facilitator, somebody that helps you get something done, right? Yeah, so these people that are serving the medicine here are dedicated people. I mean, we've got shamans in our group from right across Canada. It isn't something you fool around with. It's not something like, hey, and I've had here. I'll give you an example. I had a guy. He's talking to me. He says, Oh, I've been called to the medicine. I go, oh, cool. Yeah. He says, I'm going to be working with the medicine. I'm going to be serving the medicine. I go, oh, well, that sounds pretty interesting. How many ceremonies you done? Oh, I haven't done any. I said, look, you go down to Peru, for 5 or 6 months, and then tell me how you're going to serve the medicine. Because most of the time, people new to the medicine, I'm not saying all of this is common, but most of the time, you give somebody a cup of ayahuasca for the first time, and they're laid out in their backs, and they're not moving. So one of the hardest things to do is to get up and walk on ayahuasca. And this happened to me in Peru. I was laying there, and it's like I had to go to the bathroom, and I was like, I can't get up, right? And this is why you want helpers, and most people have helpers or apprentices that work with them. You say, so Andre had said, Al, if you got a problem, just call me. So I'm Andre. I need some help. I think I was whispering it. I don't know. But anyway, Enon, my spirit brother's going to be a shaman. He pops up, and this guy was deep into his ceremony. He pops up. And he says, "What's the matter, Al?" He says, I gotta go to the bathroom. I can't walk. So
Whoa,
he walks me out
he
to the
snapped
bathroom.
out of it. Or he's
Yep.
able to
And that,
still have control of all of his faculties and take care of what he needs to take care of.
yeah, and exactly it. Exactly, that's it. Exactly, Richard. Like if I'm in full on visions in an ayahuasca ceremony, and somebody says, "Oh, can you help me?" You just shut it off and away you go. It's an ability. You don't develop that
First or
ability.
second ceremony.
Yeah, the second or third time you're doing ayahuasca, I would say it's impossible for anybody to do ayahuasca 10 or 12 times and then sit you in a ceremony and serve you ayahuasca. It's just, I don't know how you do it. I hear these things about like fake shamans. Oh, she's a fake shaman. He's a fake shaman. So I had a guy one time contact me from, he was from northeastern United States, up there someplace. And he said, he'd been asking me before, Al, like, I want to find ayahuasca. I want to find ayahuasca. So I'd send him a list of shamans. I says, keep in touch. Let me know what's going on. If I can help out, I'll help out. Then one day he emails me, Al, I went to an ayahuasca ceremony. I says, wow, tell me how it is. He says, well, it was a fake shaman. And I go, okay, well, phone me up. So he's telling me this story, right, about this lady, and he couldn't find anybody else. So he booked the weekend with her, and she gave him ayahuasca, and then she put on a playlist, like music, right? And he says, I think it was a playlist that her daughter had done or something. And I go, oh, yeah, sounds. And he says, so she's a fake shaman. I said, well, tell me about your ayahuasca ceremony. Oh, geez, he said, it changed my life. I was, and he went on and on and on about this. And I says, okay, so is that a fake shaman? Like, I mean, she gave you good quality ayahuasca. She kept you safe. You had two very good ceremonies. And so tell me where the fakeness comes into this. So he thought about it for a while. And then later he emailed me, yeah, I booked another couple ceremonies with her. Because for a lot of people, looking for the medicine, they can't afford to go to Peru. They can't afford to go on these trips to South
Mm-hmm.
America for a month or whatever. Most of the people contacting me at Ayahuasca Canada, they're looking for a ceremony in Canada. Young people, old people, pensioners, these guys,
Within
that
their
guy,
area.
or they'll even travel within Canada. But for whatever reason, a trip to South America is out of the question for them. So where do you find a ceremony? Who's serving the medicine? And here's the thing, trying to find a shaman, because they a lot of them operate quite out in the open, or at least they used to. But you have to go looking for somebody and find somebody. And even then, what's the qualifications for a shaman? Well, my base qualification is these people know what they're doing. They keep you safe. They can give you a cup of ayahuasca and help you to the bathroom. And then it's just like you said, Richard, it's between you and the plant. If the shaman can help you out somehow, or help direct that,
Mm-hmm.
bonus. You just won the ayahuasca lottery. It's one-on-one. It's one-on-one with this plant. That's a custom designed ceremony specifically for, either what you ask for, or, what needs to happen in
I
that
think
ceremony.
people may even be afraid of them getting involved with the ceremony, only to find out that they weren't even given ayahuasca. Thinking that maybe me getting involved with somebody, and who's to say this is even ayahuasca? Say, for instance, if you're not too familiar with the plant, you don't know what the plant looks like. You don't even know what the now. If I see something like cocaine, I know that's cocaine. Or if I see a plant that looks like marijuana, that's probably some marijuana. But what does the ayahuasca look like? And is this really ayahuasca that you're giving me? So there's a big trusting issue that's involved with that.
Yeah, I tell people, I say, look at, ask that person where they got the medicine, who prepared their medicine, where did they get it? Ask for the details. Like, do you know
Hmm.
the person that cooked the medicine? How do you know them? Like, yeah, you're going to go into a pretty powerful ceremony. So,
Better do
ask
some
questions.
research. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ask questions, and if you don't like their answers, then move on to the next guy. Or if energetically you're not jiving with that person, there's a reason for that, and don't go have a
fair
ceremony
enough.
with that guy. But like I say, most of the people that well, the people that I know around the world that serve this medicine, they do it with integrity. I've never met an outlier. Well, I shouldn't say that. This one guy in Canada, he had contacted me. Oh yeah, I served the medicine. I did this. I did this apprenticeship. I did blah 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 blah. So I put him on my list of people that I send out when people ask me, "Oh, I'm looking for a ceremony." I think this guy was in Alberta or BC. So this one guy said, "Hey Al, that I'd sent this list to with that guy's name on it." He gets back to me and he says, "Al, I sent this guy money, but I haven't he hasn't confirmed the ceremony. I don't know what's going on." So I contacted this guy, or tried to contact him, no answer. And so I just took him off the list. This guy was out $700. And I says, I'm so sorry about that. But when I talked to him, he had all the right answers. So, what happened to this guy? I don't know. Maybe there was a personal problem. Maybe he had a monetary
Hmm.
problem. I don't know. But I struck him off the list. And, I'm not saying that everybody out there is serving the medicine with integrity or with the best of intentions
Yeah,
or
such
whatever. But
such is life. You're gonna have that.
oh, any profession,
Exactly.
medical profession, wherever, you're going to get some assholes.
Yeah. But for the most part, you've
Yeah,
had not only a lot of successful ceremonies, the majority, it sounds like the majority people are walking away in some way, shape, or form transformed. They're taking something away, they're learning something about themselves, and they're improving their lives for the better, overall with minimal side effects. And that's always something that you would think that it would be promoted, but it's like I said, there's a lot of stigmatism attached to it. And I've seen documentaries where they put a light on it, and it seems to be a pretty fair light on the ceremonies. It's some people they have their hangups about certain things, whether just, "Oh, I don't want to feel the nauseousness of it," or like you said, some don't want to deal with there could be that shadow coming out, and the things that,
shadow
yeah,
self.
they don't want to deal with that. And we can sometimes want to run away from our problems. Now, if we always turn away and run away from those type of things, then how can we ever expect to get better or get well? So that's going to be something we have to deal with on a personal level.
Exactly. This is, that's Carl Jung, the insane have no way of recognizing their madness, right? I would say the sane have no way of recognizing their madness as well. Ayahuasca takes you outside of yourself and lets you, and this was Jung's whole idea when he was doing his sessions, take somebody outside of themselves and let them look at themselves. And that's a lot of that is shadow work. But just in terms of shadow work and going into a ceremony, first thing, let me talk about the puking. Okay, so you go into an ayahuasca ceremony, and this happened to many, most people. I'm going to say this is common. You feel this nasty ass black energy in your body, right? And you can feel it. And you don't want it in you. I'm telling you, you do not, when you feel that, when you feel this stuff that's been influencing you, and this is just how it, experientially comes about in the ceremony, you're feeling this dark energy in yourself and you want to puke that out. So when we're talking about puking, like if you're sick or you drank too much or whatever, it's a different thing altogether. You want to get that energy out. And sometimes you will in a ceremony. Sometimes ayahuasca has to shift some stuff until you're able to purge that energy. But that's the only thing you want to do is get that energy out. So when you throw up in a ceremony, it is such a relief. It's beyond the physicality of it. And for most people, puking in a ceremony is like 5 minutes of the ceremony. Not even. It's just a small portion of the ceremony that they're going to be sick. And as you progress through as you do more and more ceremonies and that energy gets cleared, like I don't ever puke in a ceremony. Haven't done for, I don't know, I can't even remember the last time I puked in a ceremony. So, and there's other ways of clearing
Oh, it
that
sounds like
energy.
a cleansing process then.
Yeah. It's a
Purging.
you you're moving a lot of energy in an ayahuasca ceremony, and something has to give in the physical part. When you throw up, oh my God, it's like you've thrown up the weight of the world's off your shoulders. So it's a little bit different experience than that. My daughter, she gets oily skin. That's throwing off energy. Yawning in a ceremony, laughter in a ceremony is so cleansing. It's, oh God, sometimes like with my spirit brother in Canada, he is a friggin' comedian, like, and he would have a handle on the energy, right? So we'd all be kind of like an ayahuasca ceremony comes in waves, right? So you up and then down again and up and down and up and down. And he would have a good handle on the group energy. So when we're all kind of back, he'd tell a joke or something, man. Oh my God, we'd be rolling on the floor laughing. Or gratitude, feeling gratitude. And you've never felt gratitude at that level, or love, or camaraderie, or it allows you to feel the purity of your emotions in that ceremony, and it's not all just shadow dark work or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. This lady from Argentina, she contacted me, and she wanted to do ceremonies. She's lives about, I don't know, 300 kilometers from here. So finally I said, yeah, okay, come on, we'll do ceremonies. So gave her, and I told her, I was coaching her, telling her, look at, this can happen, that can happen, this, that, the other thing. Oh, she says, I know exactly what I want to deal with, and it's this shit from my childhood, and I'm going to do this. And she's working on this thing, and she was a psychologist too. So she's working on this nasty stuff, and I'm going, she's getting ready to confront this in a ceremony, right? And
Like she's
so
going to
I go,
battle.
okay, she's going to have a battle with her inner demons, right? And I go, okay, sure, yeah, whatever. Here's some ayahuasca. So we drink some ayahuasca, and she laid down there and giggled all night long,
Huh.
just laughing. She was just laughing at stuff. And she's telling me some of the stuff. I said, what were you laughing at? She says, because I use mapacho in the ceremony, which is a sacred tobacco. Oh, she says, me and mapacho, one of the stories anyway, me and mapacho were on a bus somewhere, and they served me a sandwich. So I told mapacho, hey, where's the lasagna? Just stupid stuff like this, and she never did, because ayahuasca, you think you're going to be dealing. She needed to get in touch with her joy. She needed to get in touch with her, and ayahuasca understood this and said, nah, we're going to deal with that. We're dealing with this, like this. Have fun with yourself. This is what you really need to do, is reconnect to that childhood joy. And that's what they did for 2 or 3 ceremonies. They're laughing like crazy, and I'm sitting there in my ceremony going, oh, that's interesting,
Hmm.
because I thought, with all of her trepidation and stuff, that she'd be a hard case, but
Yeah.
it was the easiest ceremonies I ever did. I sit there, listen to her giggle all
Yeah,
night,
it
so
sounds like it gives you the experience of embracing and feeling and living all of the emotions without any hangups, without any of the things that may have tainted us along the way, living the life that we've lived from childhood. You have, so you're not able to, you can laugh, but you can't laugh like you once did, say, as a child did, because they're so innocent and they
yep.
don't have all of these different things that have been thrown at them and just demolished them in a way and destroyed them. And we come out, we come out with battle scars, and so it takes a lifetime for us to heal
Yep.
those things. But it sounds like with ayahuasca, that strips all of it naked, and you're able to just, like you once put it, it's the pureness of everything. So if it's joy, but it's heightened to a level and a
Yep.
dimension that you've never experienced before.
Yeah, and in ayahuasca, it's something called a peak experience. So you're able to access that peak experience as a human being. Wow, I've connected to this purity of joy or love or laughter, and that's a peak experience. But just because you experienced it in an ayahuasca ceremony ain't gonna give you some superpower when you're done. You've dealt with, you know, you've dealt with some of the energy, and you understand that that's available, and that's why a lot of people want to get to that next ceremony. But you know, you can only get a certain portion of that, so you reconnect with your joy, you have more capacity, but because you've had that peak experience, hey, this isn't the be all and end all of it. We've cleared this part of
Hmm.
that nasty energy in the ceremony, but it's not a miracle. You can't do it all. It's a process. It's just like
Yeah.
my shaman buddy told me way back when, the first ceremony. It's a
And I would
process.
say even the people that, once you have that experience and the takeaway from it, once you're back into the real world, you're dealing with real life and you're amongst people that maybe you work with, or you're moving around in society, that there's also going to be a bit of your own work to be doing away from the plant, when you're just living life as a yeah,
Civilian?
yeah, there you go, as a civilian, so to speak, and you're going to apply some. Maybe there's things that you learned along the way during that ceremony, and you can apply it to your life. But like, we're all works in progress. We're all trying to figure it out and sort out the chaos and the madness, and like they do say, is life is teaching you as you go. So through circumstances, through situations, you can respond or react in ways to where you're gonna learn something about yourself. You're gonna learn something and just improve your overall experience, on life. So I think there's also, I don't know if everybody, it's probably a case to case basis, but once they walk away from that ceremony, and some people, they're actually doing the work, outside of the ceremony, and putting in the work to just improve their situation, and whatever it is, if it's healing, if it's recovery, if it's just breaking past those fears. And
Yeah, and that's formally recognized by the experts now, and it wasn't something I knew when I went to Peru. My buddy and I just did this organically. We'd stay up all night talking and laughing, and you know, just talking about things, serious things, silly things, or whatever. And this is something called the integration process. So you go into an ayahuasca ceremony, and it's coming at you, and woo, it's crazy, and wow, what's this about, or whatever, or God, I went down into plumbed the depths of my
sounds
soul
like
or
an
whatever.
overload. Yeah.
Yeah. So after the ceremony, and this is just as important as the ceremony itself, is this integration process. And there's a rule of thumb somebody told me once: after a ceremony is 10 days of integration. I don't know if that's true or not, but you stir up a lot of things in a ceremony. So after the ceremony, you really want to examine what you're doing and who you're doing things with. So if you're involved with a toxic person or whatever, you avoid that person. And that's called, formally called now integration. There's integration coaches, and it's something that if you go into ceremony, you really need to be aware of that, because it isn't over when the
Right.
ceremony's over. You're given a kind of a new paradigm, and you have to adjust things. You readjust things, and that's where the permanence of ayahuasca to me is never more apparent than that, because that integration process shows you where you've come. It's kind of like a reset to a new normal. So what's that going to look like in your life? What level of awareness are you going to bring in? You're going to want to avoid this toxic person. You want to throw away this bad habit. Like I've known people going to an ayahuasca ceremony, daily pot smokers,
Hmm.
or cigarettes or alcohol or whatever, and they just give it up after the ceremony. And that wasn't the reason that they were in the ceremony. They're in the, they like they call their pot
Yeah.
medicine, right? But they're chronics, I guess is what you
Wow.
call them. And they just
That
give it
was
up.
one of the side effects. That wasn't the main, the main reason why they were going into that, but that was just something that happened on the side, a little extra.
Just a little extra bonus. Thanks for playing.
Yeah.
There you go. Dr. Gabor Mate, he's world famous in addiction specialist, and he was giving ayahuasca to East Side drug addicts, like Skid Row addicts in Vancouver, right? And he would
Okay.
take them and take them to a ceremony or a set of ceremonies or whatever, and a lot of them, I think I think it was 60% gave up their drug of choice then and then didn't go back, but some of them did. So
Wow.
here's where we're talking about a level of commitment. There's programs in South America, for example, out of Brazil, where they take street addicts that want to participate. I don't know how the participation is set up, but they'll take street addicts who want to change their life, and they'll take them in the jungle for 30 days of ayahuasca ceremonies and physical activity and integration work or whatever. And you can do one ceremony and quit alcohol, but if you're in the jungle for 30 days, you're going to be changed. You're going to be, after the end of that month, you're going to be a changed person. I mean, no
Wow,
doubt about
30
it.
days in the jungle, man. That's the equivalent to some of these rehabs. They're doing like 30 days and they have a very, I wouldn't say they have the best success rate. You have stories of people they've been to rehab 10 times, 15 times, 20 times, and the money that is spent in those centers and these people trying to get help and
Yeah, yeah. There's a there's a center in Peru, Tacahuasi in Terrapota, Peru, and they're kind of one of the original evidentiary based approaches to ayahuasca for addictions and that sort of thing. And they have a tremendous, I've seen the study, I don't recall exactly what the percentage, they have a tremendous success rate. And it's evidentiary based and it's, clinical based. But the thing is, you can't separate ayahuasca from the ceremony. There's a company, this is the crazy, there's a company in Canada that come out and says, "Oh yeah, we're inventing an ayahuasca pill," and I'm like, "You can't separate ayahuasca from the ceremony. It's impossible, unless if you went to the hospital, the only way you'd be able to give an ayahuasca properly would be as if your doctor's a shaman. It's a different paradigm than our typical Western way of thinking about what a medicine is. Oh, there's something wrong in you, and one of the pipes is clogged, one of this, that, take this and you'll clear it up. Ayahuasca works at a, what I call an energetic level or a spiritual level, I guess people want to put it in those terms, or however they want to think of it. To me, it doesn't matter. Is it spiritual? Is it psychological? Does it work? Yes, it worked.
yes,
It
yes.
worked for me.
The proof
So
is in the pudding.
yeah. So it's a different paradigm, and that's exactly why I kept doing all those ceremonies. And that's why I did about what I call my deep dive into ayahuasca for 5 years. But I was dealing with a dissociative disorder, which that's a serious, you know, Western psychologists were they. I'd been to, I did everything, counseling, psychologists, this, that, the other thing, and nobody found out about this stuff. This something called dissociative disorder. So after my 5-year deep dive, ayahuasca, by through synchronicities or whatever, leads me to this information about dissociative disorder. And that's when I started reading about my life and how difficult it is to diagnose. And it's just like anything else, it's a spectrum from bouts of dissociative amnesia, which I had a 3-year 3-year experience
Yeah.
with that.
Wow. So prior to that, you were just fighting an enemy that had no name, that had
Yep.
no face.
Yep, bingo. That's it exactly, Richard. It was, and this is part of the known. I was driven. Like, what is this? I knew there was something wrong, but I read and I did this in Buddhism and Reiki and Messiah and blah blah blah, and it was all useful. It was all useful for, I guess, a level of awareness, but it's an intellectual level of awareness. And until I actually experienced ayahuasca was where I saw some relief in all of it. So I just It's just like people go, like my Mexican friend. I need another ceremony. I need another ceremony, Alan. Mas pizza, mas pizza. So you're working on something. Well, I was working on that for 5 years before I got into a diagnosis, and the diagnosis was just so useful. It's like, oh wow, other people understand this. They know. I just read about my life. It was just looking at that information. So that was incredibly helpful. And never would have done that without the plants, in my own
Man,
personal opinion.
it was such a powerful experience for you that now that you're completely all in, you're deep in it, you're involved in it, you're helping people along the way, facilitating, and then you're also are you doing coaching? Is that something that you do? People that after they've had their experience and they've had their ceremonies, and if they have any questions, they can come to you and contact you, and you kind of help them or counsel them along the way.
I just do that. Like, I mean, people contact me off the Ayahuasca Canada website or whatever, email me. I always tell them, look at it. You got any questions? Something comes up or whatever, just call me.
Okay.
it's not a business or, it's not a business or anything. It's my way of giving back to, this work. And people call me up and, and a lot of them have these valid questions that, and not so much anymore because of the understanding of the integrated process, but some people will call me up and they weren't in touch with the facilitator didn't have time or whatever, so they phone me up and we talk, and I say, oh well, that, what happened there was this. And so having somebody with experience with the medicine, and this is always my recommendation for people. If you're going to an integration coach, first thing I would want to know is, how many ayahuasca ceremonies have you done? Because it ain't like regular medicine or psychology or whatever. But yeah, so I'll talk to them and we'll talk through stuff. And like this guy with the fake shaman,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
he, so we just need to steer people back to the level of sanity.
Right. Yeah. What would you say to somebody who has been interested in doing something like this, and a few tips or steps that they should take before they completely commit to it and seek out a ceremony and seek out a way to get in touch with this spirit plant?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good point. Um, here's the thing. You can do all the research in the world. You can look at the studies.
Study long, study wrong, huh?
You can watch the videos. You can see, oh, here's my first ceremony, and I freaked out. I looked at some of those YouTube videos, and I go, are these people doing the same medicine I am? And they're nothing, absolutely nothing that will prepare you for an ayahuasca ceremony. And I was like this before I started ayahuasca. People saying, "Oh, you're doing ayahuasca, and you don't know what you're getting into and stuff." I done some I did LSD and I did mushrooms and blah blah blah. And I don't care. You do all that stuff. I don't care whatever you have done in the past, unless you're a psychonaut, very experienced with, and that's a
Yeah.
different breed of people
Hmm.
altogether. But for your average Joe out there, that's going to take ayahuasca, and nothing going to prepare you for what this is that I'm aware of. That where you can go, oh well, if I know this, that'll make the ceremony easier or better or whatever. It's something you just have. It's like I don't know, seeing a UFO. The guys that see UFOs, they just know.
Yeah.
And people that take ayahuasca, it's like, okay, yeah, all that stuff that we're reading about, there's no way of explaining it. It's hard to put it into words. My daughter and I, we developed or tried to, by through all our talkings, all our conversations and stuff, we try to develop a vocabulary for for this medicine, right? So understanding the medicine and that type of thing. But language is such a primitive way of conveying meanings from my, I mean, I've done some hypnosis sessions with a lady in LA, and we both done the medicine. And when she puts me under hypnosis and, we're in touch with whoever we're in touch with, it's all done with pictures. So I'll get a picture in my head, you know, and I know exactly what that picture means. and then I'll try for 10 minutes to explain to her what this means, because there's this level of information that gets conveyed that is not how we usually get information, right? So it's to try to explain that to somebody, say, wow, it's like
It's like that old
gratitude.
saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words, huh?
Oh, yeah, it's, and it goes well beyond that, because
Mm-hmm.
there's a knowingness to it, there's a knowing what that picture actually means. Expressing what it means is completely different. I mean, it's difficult. And so how do you explain telepathy to somebody? How do you explain, what they call downloads in an ayahuasca ceremony? Graham Hancock said he had a book downloaded to him. I know exactly what he's talking about. I've had downloads. My writing now is, I consider it a collaboration. The books that I'm working on, sometimes I'm writing, pre ayahuasca, post ayahuasca, but I'll be writing something. It comes out fully formed. You know, I just sit down. It's like taking dictation.
Oh
So
wow, okay. You're the tool, and it's just working through you.
yeah, I like to look at it as a collaboration.
A
I'm adding
collaboration.
something
There you
to
go. Yeah.
just to satisfy my ego or whatever. But yeah, there's an intelligence there that, until you experience it, it's, the videos or the, people explaining it is just a pale comparison to what happens to you in that ceremony. So how people prepare I wasn't prepared for the ceremony. I don't know anybody that said, oh yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking it was going to be. It doesn't happen.
So all the preparation beforehand is just to let you know what you may experience, the sickness that may come of it, and it's, I guess it's just like small preparation before you go ahead and take the brew and you get on your way.
Well, there is preparation that you do for a ceremony. It's called the pre-ceremony diet, and that's very, very useful, because ayahuasca is a clearing process, not only physically but mentally. It's an anti-inflammatory, and the anti-inflammatory effects are quite profound. But that pre-ceremony diet, where you're starting to cleanse your body and get the gunk out, that's an energetic process as well. And there's lots of different pre-ceremony diets, and talk to your shaman or facilitator, what should I be on. There's all kinds of different ones out there. But also what it does is eating is a habit, right?
Hmm.
So we tend to do this habitual thing and prepare the same stuff or whatever. So there's a psychological component to that, where, oh, wait, I'm not eating my regular stuff. What do I want to do? How do I want to do it? So that's very good preparation for coming into an ayahuasca ceremony. Why am I here? What do I want to do? And it's that self-awareness and self-examination. And you don't need ayahuasca for that. I mean, there's all
Right.
kinds of paths to the truth of it, but it helps get you into that psychological framework. And it's good. But like some of these, like, videos on YouTube, this, the first ceremony I ever did, and oh my god, I was riding around on, a unicorn, talking to the golden Buddha. Good, good, that's great. What does that mean to me? I don't know. It's like telling somebody your dreams, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
very profound for you, but you know, it's a cool story.
Right, yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. Just pretty much like it's going to be your own unique personal experience, and until you experience that personally, then it really means nothing.
Yeah,
You can hear it, you can listen to somebody talk about it, but you have to feel it on your skin and wear that.
yeah, 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 yeah. And you just coming back around to the intelligence of this plant medicine. Like, let's say you got 30 or 40 people in a big maloca in Peru, which is not out of the question, right? And you got 5 or 6 Shipibo shamans and apprentices and helpers. So, it's not like you're in it by yourself. But everybody in that ceremony is having a completely different experience than you are. So when you think about known effects of something like heroin, I don't know if I shoot up
Yeah,
with
that's
heroin.
crazy.
Isn't that insane?
Wow.
Everybody in that ceremony is having a completely different experience than what you are. And that blows my mind, right? So at the end of some ceremonies, people going, "Oh my god, I had so much fun. That was just such a light, beautiful ceremony, and another guy going, oh my God, that was the most intense ceremony I've ever had in my life, you know. And it is a custom designed experience based on what you need, not what you're asking for so much. Because like my that story with my friend, she was asking for, you know, this deep shadow work, and she didn't get it. It's like, you don't need that. Here's what we need to do first. And I've had that in ceremonies. One time I was, same thing, you know, I was getting ready for a ceremony at my place, and I'm saying, I gotta face this fatherhood stuff, and it was weighing on me and been wearing on me for a couple of weeks, and I'm doing my diet, and I'm like, okay, we got to clear this up, right? So, you know, part of my preparation is I go in the shower before I go into the ceremony, clean myself up a little bit, and then go down to the ceremony, right? So in the ceremony, ayahuasca comes along and plays a snippet of song in my head. "Cats in the Cradle" by I believe it's Cat Stevens or whoever. Maybe no, maybe it wasn't. But "Cats in the Cradle" and "The Silver Moon," Little Boy. No, not Little Boy Blue and the Man in the Moon. Who did that song? God, it's
It'll come
uh,
after we get off. It always does.
yeah, exactly. And it's a song
Okay.
about fatherhood. When you coming home, Dad? I don't know when we'll get together. Then, Dad, you know we'll get together. Then, what song is that? I don't know. But anyway, it's a song about fatherhood. And if that song came on a radio or something, I wouldn't listen to it. I'd shut it off. I'd walk out of the room, whatever. It just tore me apart. She played that snippet of song in my head, and that was it. That's where we dealt with fatherhood stuff, and I love that song now. And she's like, "Okay, you done
Man.
with that? We got other stuff I got to work on in the ceremony."
This is what you think you need, but we're going to go here.
This, yeah, yeah, exactly.
The
The
intelligence.
intelligence is
Man.
beyond, you know, and it took me a long time to learn to trust that intelligence, and it took me a long time to learn to accept, you know, that I'm dealing with this intelligence that is beyond human intelligence, you know, and to trust that intelligence as well. I can remember one ceremony, like I'm sitting there lecturing ayahuasca, and I'm saying, well, yeah, that's great, you know, in the ceremony, but you don't know the world I have to live in. And I got bills and I got blah, and this got to pay car payments, and, you know, and I'm lecturing her about all of this stuff that humans go through. She knows that stuff upside down, backwards, and forward, and I've been shown that in so many different ways. But the trusting that medicine, and now I just completely trust it. If I have an experience in a ceremony, my job is to figure out what was that about, and, you know, what are we doing here? What was the lesson? Why did I need to have that type of experience? You know, through that whole integrative process, right? But when you do that, you will find, well, like I do anyway. Maybe you won't, but I find that that is for my best, to make me the best human being that I
Right.
can be, is why. And I don't know why she does it. Why is she like humans? I don't know. Like, we're not very likable if you look at society, you know, as a
She's
whole.
got a soft spot for humans, huh? For whatever reason.
Yeah, yeah. For some reason or other, she wants the monkeys to become self-aware and to become authentic. And one thing that she doesn't like is people praising her. "Oh, ayahuasca, thank you so much. You're so good, you know, you're so big and powerful, and I'm such a little insignificant little human rat." Or she hates that. I can tell you that for a fact. She's like, "Shut up, stand up for yourself, become the sovereign human being that you were meant to be. That's what you're supposed to be doing here." And when I went through some ceremonies where it was like I realized that everything that I'm doing, everything that happens in my life is my responsibility. Nobody else. It's not the outside world. I can react to that how I want to react to it. It's not a set of circumstances. It's my responsibility to direct how my life is and what I do with my life, what kind of a human being I am. And that, you know, at that point in my life, it was a paradigm change. It's like, there's no victims here. There's no victimization. You
Yeah.
are responsible for you. So shut up. I'll bitch slap you until you get it, you know.
That's powerful stuff because that was something that for the longest I never wanted to tell myself, because when I was younger, it was always somebody else's fault. Every time something went wrong, never mind what I was doing, but it was always somebody else's fault. And I couldn't get a break. I had a chip on my shoulder, but that's pretty much like one of the main components of this podcast. And it's funny that you bring that up, is because it's about when people take responsibility and accountability for their livelihood, for their situation, for their circumstance, because there are some things that are out of our control. But even if we're in the midst of that situation, we still have we still have the responsibility to, if we can't improve that situation, we can improve ourselves in the midst of that situation.
100%. Yes. Yep. Yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. And people say that ayahuasca has an agenda. I say, okay, what is the agenda? Stand up for yourself. Understand your situational awareness of not only the physicality of your situation, but of your mental state within that physicality. That's for you. You can do that. I mean, there's Buddhist monks. They put them in jail, and you know they are in the same mental state as if they were out of jail.
Hmm.
So how does that come about? And, to me, that's ayahuasca right there. Shut up, stand up for yourself. Become the sovereign human being that you're meant to
And
be.
some, they're so imprisoned that they become so comfortable with prison that when they do have the freedom of choice, it's overwhelming, and they rather have somebody else make those decisions and choices for them. Like I've read stories about people when they
Yep.
were
Yep.
released from detention centers, or people that were freed from, let's say, escaping North Korea, or even people that were released from prison, and they came out and they had just so many choices and decisions. I heard this one story. This guy was like, I was 25 years in prison, and when I was released, I felt like such a kid and I felt like such a fool, because for the first time I'm in a store and they're telling me just go ahead and buy a hat, and I'm sitting in front of a rack of hats, and I couldn't decide which. I was used to, for 25 years, being told when to, pretty much how to move, when to sleep, what you eat. And so I couldn't, so I just ended up picking up the hat that was on the floor. Okay, I'll take this hat. But all of the choices and decisions, and some people, that can also be something that's just overwhelming. Some people don't want to take that. They're afraid to take responsibility for themselves and just rather have somebody else do it for them, or blame, whatever the reason is for them not being where they are, because it was, no, it was their fault, his fault, but never mind.
Yeah. 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 So if anything, that's what I'd say would be the agenda there. Wake up. I live in a different world. Like when I look at my life, pre ayahuasca and post ayahuasca, I live in a different world. It is so much richer. I have such an understanding of what makes up this world and the influences and how I get to interact with those influences. And not only that, but like I have some seriously brilliant spirit friends, that I get to interact with and understand things that they're telling me and they're showing me. My world is, it's like that Disney thing, like when you're a kid, when you wish upon a star, and this
Yeah.
whole magical thing. I live in that world. I live in a world of magic and synchronicities, and it's, oh man, I can't tell you what and joyfulness and laughter. And yeah, go ahead, kill me. Like, yeah, I know what's waiting. It's like Ella Fitzgerald, right? I have a spiritual suitcase and I know where I'm going. There's a world outside of ourselves that we don't get to experience. And when you experience that, a bird singing, I mean, this bird is I don't know what bird it is, but that's so beautiful. And it's just a richness to my life now that I wouldn't give that up for anything.
Amen. All I can say about that is amen. Hallelujah. You've exorcised the
Hallelujah.
demons.
Healed.
And that's what I was thinking when people are you're saying
It
that this
is.
evil,
It's,
negative black force that's inside of you, and this is a reaction. It's the spiritual, the psychological, and then your body is reacting and it wants to get rid of it, and so that's what it's doing. It's releasing all these toxins, and so I was thinking, like, in the back of my head, that it sounds like they're just exercising the
Yep.
demons.
Yeah. You know, when I was deep into my deep dive there, I discovered what I called gatekeepers. And they were, and this relates back to the dissociative disorder, but I see this in people. The extreme things teach us a lot of things, but I see these things going on with people, and where a part of an aspect of your personality will kick in, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, and you'll get kind of sidelined. And I had these things, these gatekeepers, that were doing this in a very direct manner. Like I used to be the comedian, right? And you hear these things about comedians laughing on the outside, crying on the inside. But
Hmm.
I I referred to that as my inner clown. And after one ceremony, this girl I'd done some ceremonies with, she says, "Al, I saw your clown." And I said, "What? You saw that?" Yeah, yeah, yeah. She says there was a clown, and it was this clown face, like the happy clown face, that would then switch over to this, the horror clown face,
Okay, yeah, like from that horror movie, It. I think it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
It.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, I'm at another ceremony with these other people, and there's this very connected lady, like psychic lady type, and she came up to me and says, "Al, I see your inner clown. I saw your inner clown. I saw your clown face." And I'm like, "Okay, so that's a thing." So it's not that you don't want to give up your sense of humor, but it's got to get back into balance. And so when I discovered these personalities, whenever I would run into a personality in a ceremony, I say, okay, I got you, you're done, we're finished. And some of them were just so happy to go, these aspects of myself, like Mad Allan and Sad Allan and the
Mm.
inner judge and the cop and the lawyer, blah blah blah. I was filthy with gatekeepers. So those, and they're useful, that information or that mindset is useful, but it's got to get, what I had to do was bring that oversized energy and bring it back into my body. So when those aspects of my personality say you're done, you're gone, and they're just like, oh, okay, they get reintegrated. It got reintegrated back into me. That energetic charge got reintegrated back into myself, and that becomes not a negative drain on me. I don't know if I'm explaining this properly, but it brings that energy that's expended on that over emotional charge, or that character personality characteristic. It rebalances, it brings it back into myself, and I no longer have to deal with that energy. So those were permanent changes. So once I caught on to that, I was looking for them. I was I w- I was on a gatekeeper hunt. Like early in my ceremonies, I'm doing ceremonies, and thank God my spirit brother was tolerant of this. But like, I'd be in a ceremony, and you know, it can be overwhelming. It can be a little scary or whatever. Well, I'd get parked, and somebody else would be going, "Oh wow, look at this! Is this?" And talking out loud in a ceremony, right? And after the ceremony, people would say, "Oh, Alan, you were so noisy last night." And I said, "Noisy? I was just laying in the ceremony, having my own little quiet little ceremony, right?" And how I caught on to that, like, I used to record audio in the ceremony because I loved listening to the Icaros later, right? Like that Enon would sing or whatever. And I listen and say, "Yeah, what the hell is this?" I was being noisy. And so that's when I actually started catching on to these aspects of my personality, and what in dissociative disorder would be, in full blown dissociative disorder, it would be, distinct personalities. And just like everything else, it's a spectrum. Never did have distinct personalities that emerged, but I had these aspects of my personality. They're just ready to step in to protect me from whatever horrible danger they thought I
Yeah.
was involved in, which may have been good, when I was 7, but it's no longer serving me. That energy is no longer serving me. So we had to get all those guys back into the herd.
Mm.
It
Yeah,
was a
because
process.
during that time, that's used as a defense mechanism, right? In order to deal with the pain, the hurt, the violence, or whatever it is that's traumatized you during that time of your life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, ayahuasca shows you the truth of yourself, and the truth comes out, and however it comes out, and eventually you catch on, and away you go. So, that was part of the reason I was driven, to keep on working on what I was working on. So other people maybe, wouldn't be at that level, or I was what I'd call a hard case, but some people, they just want to connect more authentically with themselves, or you don't have to be a drug addict, take ayahuasca. If you feel there's something wrong with your life, and you want to do something very strong medicine to deal with that, then yeah, ayahuasca will can help you out with that. There's lots of other things as well. I'm not a there's lots of things that help, but it was nothing like ayahuasca. I don't believe that could have showed me that level of, I don't know, dysfunction or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah,
so.
exactly. This has been a real interesting talk because this is the first time I think it's safe to say the first time that I've even spoken to someone personally that's gone through a ceremony. Now, we've talked about and referred to the videos you can see online and the secondhand, third hand experiences, but to speak with someone directly who's been through it and to get a little insight into what you were going through, your reasons for it in the beginning, your experience with it afterwards, and the firsthand insight that you have with dealing with the plant, and then the intellectual aspect of it. All of that has been some fascinating stuff. Allan, I want to thank you for taking time out to break all of it down in layman's terms, coming from fresh eyes and fresh ears and somebody who hasn't undergone any ceremonies. And I know you have a book, and I know you have a YouTube channel. I don't know how and also a website. So if you want to share a little bit about that and what you have going on with
Sure, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm the executive director of Ayahuasca Canada, so it's ayahuascacanada.com website, which is just basically an informational website. I'm the founder of the Companionship of the Sacred Vine in Canada, which has been, like I'd mentioned, the first legal exemption to serve ayahuasca in shamanic ceremonies, not like Santo Daime or UDB ceremonies. So we've got that up and running, but we're not quite operational on that yet. I'm the author of Ayahuasca, the Gringo's Guide, that is just out on Amazon right now. I'm also working with a group of very talented people that are opposing some arrests that have happened in Canada that are designed to shut down or put a damping effect on ayahuasca. So we're putting out some position papers on that. Like we have a white paper on enforcement, to give them a background on what they're enforcing if they're busting somebody for ayahuasca. So we're making recommendations to law enforcement officials about how they should handle, these types of so-called offenses. So we're going to be putting out a position paper on ayahuasca decriminalization in Canada. So let's see what else is there. Oh yeah, we're starting. It's another thing we're doing. Ayahuasca Canada is starting up a podcast.
all
Oddly
right,
enough,
okay.
yeah, it's called the Ayahuasca Files. So we're just working through everything we
The
need to do to get
ayahuasca
that set up.
files.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was the overwhelming favorite name for it, and so we're just starting to get our interviews up and running there. So I'm saying within a month or month and a half, we will officially start putting out videos
Oh,
podcasts there.
cool. Is it going to be people talking about their experience, their journey?
Well, it's a little bit beyond that, because a lot of these people are very advanced, doing advanced work, and we want to bring out some of the issues around ayahuasca. Certainly, we've got my friend Gustavo from Brazil who's going to be talking to us about how normalized ayahuasca use is in Brazil. Like there's an ayahuasca church, in every neighborhood down there. and nobody's dying and
Okay.
nobody's freaking out and running around the streets. It's well integrated into Brazilian society, so things like that. So we will be talking about some of the ceremonial aspects, of course, but we're also examining some of the issues around ayahuasca use and facilitating. We've got a very smart psychologist guy that's working on a set of standards and accreditations for ayahuasca facilitators. And this is, harkening back to your question.
Okay.
It would be an independent examination of what this guy's. You can't say, oh yeah, this guy can serve ayahuasca, that guy can or can't. He doesn't have the experience or qualifications, but certainly for things around serving ayahuasca, how do you run your ceremonies? Do you have ambulance standing by? Not that you need one, but all of these safety measures and aftercare support, integration support, how are you providing that and that sort of thing. So we're setting up a set of accreditation standards just for that reason, to give people some level of
Okay.
confidence. Oh yeah, this guy's been through the accreditation process. Here's his online profile. Here's what he does. Here's how the ceremonies run. That sort of thing. Just to, because just like you say, who do I go see? Well, is this guy? So we've got a lot of very, very interesting initiatives going on. A lot through
Yeah,
Ayahuasca
man,
Canada.
that sounds like it. I'm looking forward to listening to the podcast also. And like I told you, I was diving into a couple of the videos that you had about my name is Allan, and this is what ayahuasca wants me to tell you. Something to that effect. And I thought it was very interesting, and
Yeah,
that was a good breakdown. I've
yeah,
watched the first two videos. It's ayahuasca, Planet Prison, and the reincarnation trip. So I've
yeah.
I've got a few more to get into with that, but I listened to the first two videos and I was like, yeah, that's right up my alley. I dig this.
Yeah, I did those videos a few years back in my ayahuasca evangelism days, because we always have it. You find the
On
medicine and you think,
fire.
yeah, yeah, this is everybody in the world's got to do this, all the world leaders. So I went through the ayahuasca evangelism stage and I put out a series of videos called What Ayahuasca Told Me to Tell You. So that's on the Ayahuasca Canada YouTube channels. The prison planet stuff is interesting. I started writing a book prior to the Gringos Guide. I wrote a book about that, and I had a first draft. And when I say I wrote a book, we wrote a book.
Yeah, it was a
Me and my
collaboration.
Yeah, it was a collaboration. And so I'm writing this book, and then ayahuasca goes, Al, people have to understand what ayahuasca is, and you got to put out this book first. And so that's when I started writing Ayahuasca, the Gringo's Guide. So that's how that whole book came about. Was, it's just like going into a ceremony. We deal with the basics first, and then we get to the next level, next level, next level. But that whole prison planet stuff is,
That's a
my
heavy
God.
hitter.
Oh, one other thing that I forgot to mention with you, in just in terms of people taking ayahuasca, and I'll just quickly, because we got to get going here, I guess. But ayahuasca doesn't just deal with traumas from the here and now. Genetic traumas, family lineage traumas, traumas that you're not even aware. Those are some things I dealt with in ceremonies as well. And if you look into epigenetics, those traumas can come from 7 8 generations ago. So you might not be able to point to something in your life right now that you should be feeling how you're feeling, but generational traumas, World War II, worldwide generational trauma, and that's not your experience, but epigenetics bears that out, that trauma, it gets passed down genetically. Those markers get passed on. Ayahuasca is neurogenetic. It shifts, your genetic profile, for lack of a better unscientific way of looking at it. But this was shown to me. God, how long do we have? This was shown to me in an ayahuasca ceremony once. There's this huge line of power, right, that I was close to, and I was crackling with this energy and stuff, right? And it's like, wow, what the freaking hell is this thing, And I'm close to it, right? I'm close to it. Well, later on in some ceremonies, I saw that same line, right? And now I'm further away from it, and it's just a little line. And she says, reach out, and just pinch that. So I just reached out and disengaged, pinched that line. So she was showing me in kind of a direct way that how close you are to that emotional trauma. Ayahuasca can take you back and let you look at it. Anyway, on and on and on we go. So interesting stuff.
No,
Totally
we
interesting. Yeah.
definitely yeah, I would love to connect and talk some bit more about this. You can go on so many different layers and levels with this that you can't fit it all in an hour or two. I would definitely look forward to yeah, connecting back, getting back in touch with you and letting you rip again.
We'll have you on the show, Richard. We'll have you on the show. You see, here's what happens with me. I forget all this stuff, and then people ask me the questions, and I go, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, that
Right.
was like this, that was like that." So, for me, I love doing this because I get these questions, and I've forgotten about that stuff. But that's the thing, and we all contribute at whatever level that we're at, and that's what happens in an ayahuasca ceremony. That's what happens in society. That's what happens in human interaction, and it helps us all. So, what we'll do after your first ceremony, I'll have you on and we'll do a little
Yeah, that sounds
podcast
like
with
a
you.
plan.
Okay.
All right, Alan. Hey, thank you so much. And yeah, we're definitely gonna keep in touch and yeah, man, all the best, my best regards and just keep doing what you're doing.
It's been a lovely conversation, Richard, and thank you so much for having me. I
Oh
really
yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely, no doubt. I can't help but respect the man's enthusiasm for this topic. Can you blame him if this is something that has impacted his life as profoundly as he said it has? The things that he was struggling with, the traumatic events that shook him up as a child, the alcoholism, the loss of his brother, the work that he was involved with, which he said over the years just wasn't aligned with his core value and who he was. A shaky relationship with his daughter, and just struggling with his own inner conflicts and trying to get answers to what the hell is up with this human condition. Allan said he's tried therapy, he was trying to self-help, he was trying a lot of different things, but nothing was sticking until he came in contact with this spiritual plant known as ayahuasca. And I don't even think it's necessary for me to reiterate a lot of what Allan talked about because I think he did a pretty good job on his own explaining and sharing with us his firsthand knowledge and experience with this plant and the healing and transformation that he's seen from hundreds, if not thousands of people. And so if you guys want to follow up with him, if you want to check out his book on Amazon, The Gringo's Guide from Amazonian Ceremonies to New World Facilitators, which he says is that solid framework for anyone looking to understand the medicine from a North American perspective and all of its uses for trauma, addiction recovery, who should use it, who shouldn't use it, safety advice, best practices, all of that good stuff is included. He has a website with information on everything to do with ayahuasca. And then he also has a YouTube channel. So Allan, again, I want to thank you for opening up and sharing a few pages of your story with us today. It sounds like, it looks like you're in a much better place. You're enjoying a new song from nature and also a loving, joyful, and healthy relationship with your daughter. You're content and satisfied with the work you're doing and helping other people experience transformation and healing. So all the best, man. That's a beautiful thing. Keep being free. Keep being unique. You are a giant amongst us. So I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. I hope you guys took something away from this. It's ultimately up to us to work out our own path and to gather the resources, the knowledge, the information that we need, internalize it, materialize it. And once you start dissecting it and digesting it, then you can utilize it in whichever way you see fit. And so if you guys want to shoot us a line, if you guys want to share some thoughts, you know where to reach us. You can find the information in the show notes. We're going to catch up and do this again real soon. And before the candle completely burns out on this side, if you would like to be a part of the show and share your story, or even a story of someone in your life that has impacted you in a positive way, you can always reach out to me via email. I'd be happy to connect. Until next time, and very soon. Peace.
I'm looking for a sign to know I'm on the right road. Ain't seen no sign,